All right, this is the Alchemer Intercept training for July 17th, 2024 for all of our AOS members. Welcome. We're really excited about this new added feature from Alchemer that is being added to all of our AOS accounts. We first want to thank the AOS Buying Committee and their long work and effort in going through this past December and evaluating the vendor, Alchemer, and renewing that contract. In the effort to do that, one of the things that we strive for that came out of you guys was a desire to have a few different features added on and negotiated in that. And because of that, we are now adding the web intercept feature to all of your accounts at no additional AOS membership cost. This is because of all the great work we've done in buying more in bulk and as we buy as a group, it's been able to reduce costs and everything as well. Before we go in and get that though, I do want to do a very quick plug. We have a very large an opportunity this coming week at NACHO 360 in Detroit. It'll be the largest coming together of AOS members in our history. The MELF AOS chapter will be hosting us, and drink tickets will be at the door. Please make sure that if you are not going to NACHO 360, but someone within your health department is going, that you forward that invitation to them to be able to come in. Now, what is that effort? Obviously, you guys know that we're CDC funded and state funded off of many a variety of grants, and this is an effort to help those smaller AOS chapter and states get connected to different CDC grants and to state grants to help build the National Library. And so please take the time to share that with everyone, and also pick up a shovel. Come in, get to know each other as we build the largest library of local health department members. I'm very proud to say that this morning we went over the 3,800 tools in the National Library as we work together. What an amazing effort. And so anyway, wanted to do that plug. And without further ado, we're going to turn this over to Alchemer to do an in-depth training on Web Intercept. And then please write down any questions you have as we go through that. I will be in the chat box to help you guys.
Thank you, Jacob. Nice to meet you all, and thank you all for joining today to run over the website Intercept feature in the Alchemer survey platform. So quickly, kind of right before I screen share, what is website Intercept? And you're probably familiar if you're browsing just any website, and on occasion you'll get a pop-up that says, hey, do you have a moment to leave some feedback? And that is a pop-up that is built into Alchemer that we call website Intercept. So we can essentially completely control when and where we want surveys to pop up on any website. So as we jump in, I'm going to screen share, and I kind of just want to show you just quickly what this can look like on a demo site. And I'm going to jump into the Alchemer demo account where we can see all of the settings that set this up. This is just a quick in-house website that we have, just kind of playing on electric cars using Edison. And if I do a quick refresh here without any conditions, basically I have a survey that will display. And this is kind of what we call a pop-up or a modal dialogue. And this will make a little bit more sense when you jump into some of the terminology. We'll have full access to essentially put this on any page in the website. You can customize this box. We can make it look differently, but the behavior of this is when we take the survey, we're just going to pop up right on that screen. We can also bring in some information about any visitors that we need to, like if we want to identify something like a member ID or some unique variable that helps us determine who's taking a survey, we'll have full control over that. Now, I'll also put this in a leave behind if you want to access this site to kind of just understand how it works. But as you click on some of these different tabs, we also will have just different methods of how you can actually embed surveys directly on a site. Then additionally, when we kind of control too some of the logic in terms of how frequently are we serving individuals and kind of how frequently those surveys come up. So as I jump into this, I'm now switching over to the Alchemer platform, and this is what we refer to as the dashboard. As you gain access, you'll have a list of projects. We'll be able to create projects, things of that nature. The way that the surveys work is through the distribution tab, we can kind of set up different links to the survey. And I'll kind of jump into just a very simple NPS type template asking, audience how we're doing. Please leave us a score. And under the share tab here, the share tab within the survey build, we're going to build the forms. Once we're ready to distribute, there's going to be multiple methods in how we submit these links. And then we'll scroll down here, and there's this piece called campaigns and source tracking. So any particular survey can have multiple entry points, and we're going to specifically be focusing on this website Intercept survey piece here. So kind of a housekeeping part of setting up this feature is what we call initiating a beacon. And so typically this is up to an administrator on the account. And what that means is we're going to open up the left-hand panel and we'll need to establish a beacon before we can turn surveys on to essentially embed on a site. And the beacon is really designed under integrations. We'll click here. We're going to click on website intercept, and we can have multiple beacons. Basically, the beacon is is what we're handing over to members of our web development team or individuals who have access to the sites that we want to make sure these surveys are dynamically popping up on. So a beacon is essentially that little bit of JavaScript code, and this will just take a minute to generate as it's piecing together that quick snippet. This is essentially what you'll need access to edit on your website code for someone or access someone who can to make sure we can turn on these links. So the way that this works, we just kind of name a beacon, and this is just a placeholder. This could either be by project name, it could be like by a marketing type campaign or the site that something is going to. And the beacon is really, again, just to get this bit of script, which is not ever going to change. And once that this beacon is installed on your site, we can essentially quickly activate or disable that beacon. So this is kind of just a first step housekeeping piece of it that an admin will help set up. We'll take this snippet of code, we'll forward that onto the web team, and really this just needs to be placed on any page where we want to survey to pop up. This is kind of the first part, and again, you can either have multiple beacons. So this kind of comes down to the fact of if we have different teams managing surveys or who's control of which sites, we may set up a beacon after each team, whatever that organizational structure looks like on your end. Likely depending on how many individuals will be creating survey links that'll pop up on the site, and that's really, again, controlling which survey is displaying inside of this box. We'll likely just need to make sure that each individual creating these links knows which corresponding beacon you would need to use. And this, again, this is the admin piece. So all non-admin users can still create links. And that's kind of where we navigate back into the survey piece of it here. Now, kind of if you're following along up to this point, this is really the critical piece that everyone will be jumping into. So once you have your survey established, and we really want to start managing how a survey interacts on the website, that is going to come back to the share tab, and we'll focus primarily on that website intercept survey link. So when we go and create a website intercept link, this is just kind of, again, putting a point of entry into the survey. And there's a few things to highlight here. We can name what this survey link is called. And this could just be something simple like web intercept, or it could be like tied to a specific page like homepage feedback. Really, whatever that title is just an internal indication in Alchemer as in terms of what the logic is or what we're trying to make this do. We then get to choose the invite type. And there are four options. There's a top banner, there's a bottom banner, and then that modal dialog is the most common option. That modal dialog, again, is basically referring to this pop-up where a window just kind of comes in your face just to get your attention, very easy to click out of, or offer the option to take that survey. Inside of this, you get that invite text. So this is where you can kind of customize that invite for the respondent to engage with the survey. And then we even get to change what that survey link text is. So again, you have complete customization control over each survey that you are kind of putting on the site. The Intercept beacon, this is kind of that main focal point. First, we need to do the housekeeping to make sure the beacon exists. But this is essentially how we tie the survey to which basically beacon that the survey belongs to. So we kind of think about the beacon again as the gateway to unlock the survey to pop up. So you'll see a list of all of them that are in the account. And again, this is where we'll need to make that correlation between what the survey is and where the intended location for it to pop up is. I'm just going to click on homepage here. And a quick note, it's important to note that you can have as many survey links and multiple surveys tied to one beacon because we can dynamically control the conditions in which that survey displays. So for example, if you wanted to do something like an A/B split testing, we could randomly assign 50% of the respondents see this path or 50% of the respondents see a second path, controlling like two different surveys that we want to display. So in this piece of it, when we're first creating this link, again, this is just kind of linking to that script. And when you're on that site, the script is basically going to start running what we call logic triggers. And so once we save this, we can kind of start setting up those advanced triggers. So you'll see the three tabs at the top. Settings is just, again, that name in the app, assigning which piece of the web page is going to open up in. And then we go to the advanced section. Now, the advanced section, this is kind of controlling the access to it. This is the link settings. This is how we control access. If we don't set up any of these logic conditions, similar to the site, we just pull it up and we're going to see that load right away. So there's built-in logic conditions. So in this menu where we set up the logic, Alchemer refers to this left-hand column as selecting the condition. So we're just really kind of, in a way, this is programming what happens. And there's some built-in things that happen, like if we will track automatically the last time someone completed a survey. So just off the bat, if someone has not completed this in the last 30 days, then in this instance, we could make sure that the survey does not display again unless they meet this, the respondent meets this condition. So in this left-hand column of the logic builder, we've got the condition selector. This is what we refer to as the operator, where we kind of change the value based on what's happening. And then this right-hand column is the value that we're mapping on. So we can start to string together multiple conditions. And this is where, again, it is programming because we can choose if that first statement and the second statement both need to match. You also can separate these conditions with an or statement. So we can kind of start compiling multiple things together. And this is really how we can start to really control and fine tune these website intercept links displaying when we want them to. And the huge advantage to call out with this logic is this is all set up in Alchemer. So we don't even have to have access to the web page once that beacon is installed. And we can stop pestering our web development team potentially anytime we need to make a change. So it's very quick to enable new campaigns, new surveys, turn surveys off and on, things of that nature. Now, of some of these additional common things that we'll want to set up. The last offer to survey is extremely common. So is the percent chance if we kind of want to sample a random population of respondents coming to the page. And this is really all based off of the interaction, the device type, how long you are on a page, maybe we want to track all of the pages that a user has visited, and only after they've visited maybe like a contact page or a home page or a specific article where we're calling something out, we could now trigger this survey to pop up. Did I hear a question there? We all cool. Um, where we kind of start getting a little bit more advanced, and again, this is kind of controlling if we want to set an open date, a close date, we can turn things on and off. We do get some additional customizations that we can control. And what that means is we get the custom JavaScript to either kind of interact with the page. We can add some custom CSS, which would be a way to further adapt the coloring to make sure that it's matching your web page essentially. And that's more or less the gist of it in terms of those basic controls. So how do we test the web intercept? And this is the part that we want to make sure that when we're either setting up the beacon, we may ask the web development team to either use like a testing environment or pages where we can ensure that these conditions work as we need them to. But we can also click on this test page, and essentially how this is we'll let you launch your website directly from this page. So you would type in your root domain plus the page. This is optional, but if you don't have it on your home page, for example, anytime you access the test from this specific page, it's essentially going to ignore these conditions and display the survey so that we can ensure that it is working with your site in terms of once that condition is hit, it would pop up. And this is essentially allowing us to test that the pop-up is working without hitting that logic. So for example, you have a setting on there where you can only access this survey if you have not done so in the last 30 days. It can be hard to test again if we are waiting 30 days. So this is a way that we can bypass that piece of it. As we jump into more of the advanced settings, Alchemer can help from a support standpoint in terms of really dialing in the logic or at least kind of working through your use case. How do you want the survey to display? And we want to typically think about things like when should the survey display and what information, if any, do we want to bring in? So I kind of mentioned back in this logic feature that this is really interaction based on things like a session. This is all based on cookies in terms of someone coming to the site, and these things are tracked through the browser cookie. So if we need to use any of these advanced features, this is where we can also lean on your web development team in terms of if we want to access specific CSS selectors, cookies, custom data. This is how we tie into your website to pull additional information. Kind of as a leave behind, and again, I'm going to send this website so you can kind of do a test just to see how that all works. And then I'm also going to link to the article that kind of runs through this in kind of more advanced options. And then here is what I kind of wanted to drag over is this advanced logic conditions where we speak to that. Now, the main thing to note here, the piece that I want to leave behind is if we really want to target in custom data, we do that by saying things like, here's our custom variables that live on our site. So we'll need to identify with your web development team if you're using custom data, what those variables are called. And then specifically, we give this bit of housekeeping information for that team to kind of utilize. So where we come back to the integrations and then the website intercept piece where we set up those beacons and you get that generic code, these are little segments of code that we can manually append to that script that we're embedding. And this is an example of what that looks like. So we essentially can make sure that Alchemer is calling and connecting your web page to that beacon, that piece that's controlling things to be launched. And then once that is a part of your site, again, you're just kind of managing the logic piece of it. So this is more housekeeping, a little bit more advanced. You will not necessarily need to know how to do this piece, but make sure you're just asking that question in terms of information you want to track, and that's for reporting purposes. That's where we can make sure that we're pulling in information from your site and pulling it into that specific response. Now I'm pretty close to done there, so I just want to do a very fast recap, and that is we've covered today the website Intercept portal here where you need to set up a beacon, and that beacon again is that script that we're connecting all of your surveys to. So we would want to set that up in a way that makes sense. Please feel free to connect internally, and then if there's anything that Alchemer can help with to essentially determine the team name or set up help with the team management, we can kind of help organize that. And then we go back into any of the surveys that you build. And once they're ready to launch, we go to the share tab to create that website Intercept survey. So let me pause there to see if any questions came up. And then we can also coordinate next steps if there's any follow-up that's needed from this session.
No questions have come in the chat so far. So if anyone wants to write them down and throw them out, they can while we wait. Again, while we're waiting, I'll do a plug for the party in Detroit at NACHO 360, Wednesday, July 24th at 6 to 7 o'clock at Huntington Place. It's for all AOS members and non-AOS members. There will be free alcohol. The drink tickets for anybody that's coming. You do need to let us know that you'll be there. Just send me an email. There is a question from Darrell. Obviously, it's from Darrell. He's thorough. I have a question about logos. Go ahead, Darrell.
Thanks, Jake. Tyler, great presentation. Really appreciate it. My question is about when I see the example intercept that you put up there, it just looks like I'm getting fished. But if I go onto like the CDC's website, they have the please take our thing, and then they have their logo, and it looks very professional. So I just was wondering if there's a way, either with code or with something on the user side, to make it look less like you're getting fished.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Primarily what I'll show here, this will tie in when we have that website intercept link, those advanced customizations that we can make with custom CSS. This is where we could basically reference a logo, or could put in some customization here. So by default, we won't put an image directly into there, but we can easily do that by calling out custom CSS. So I can send over an example, but typically what I would do on this end, and this may be a little bit over the top, but if I inspect the element here, this is giving us developer tools that kind of target these classes. I can basically target any of these classes where I could basically put in that background. So that's a little bit more than is needed, but we can really cater this to mark it up as much or as little as you want. So we could even put other links in here if anyone wants to read more, or link to a privacy policy, things like that. And then when you click on that survey, we could even put in logos here on that survey. We try and make that as easy as possible too. And any styling of the survey can be done from the style tab with custom logos, custom colors, or again, we give you full control to these items.
I know,
Tyler.
Tyler, you have a hard stop, so I think one last question for you, just that super quick. Is there ever an issue for having multiple intercepts or beacons on the same page?
For the most part, as long as the logic itself does not overlap, that would not pose an issue. But if we have similar logic, it's potentially possible that we'll have multiple modal dialogues pop up. You might have like two surveys display here, and we would not want that to be the case. So we can kind of account for that easily by setting up another logic condition in the web intercept to kind of ensure that that doesn't happen. I think the best practice is one beacon per page, and then we kind of use the survey to map to that page. But then you can have any amount of surveys pop up, and we'll make sure we're just displaying one survey. So I think it's a good best practice to have one beacon per page. multiple surveys per beacon is not a problem. We just want to make sure that we don't have conflicting logic. Like we want to make sure it's this intercept link or the other, but we're always going to only serve up one.
Perfect. Jake, I do know we have to let Tyler go. He has that hard stop at 1:30 our time, so right now. But otherwise, what else can we help you with? I know we're recording, so I don't want to jump too far anywhere else here on this call.
I'll end the recording, and thanks guys for coming in, and anyone that wants
Yeah.
to be on for Elizabeth, we can end with any questions. Thanks, guys.
Take care.